Good morning. So I'm the last thing that stops you guys. It's between me and lunch. I promise I'll try to keep you engaged and interested. So the first thing I wanted to show you is to kind of talk about the bar and shield. So the bar and shield for Harley-Davidson is theoretically never changed. So you guys that are from Wisconsin or from anywhere around, when you think of the bar and shield and you think of Harley, what sort of terms come to your mind? Just shout them out.
Freedom.
Who said orange? Did you say orange? Come on, guys. Give me a little bit. Come on. Anything else? All right. So we're going to show you a video called Creed. This is a video that you're going to notice. It's a little bit behind the times from a standpoint of kind of how clear and concise it is. But this is one of my ultimate favorite videos that we ever did.
We believe in going our own way, no matter which way the rest of the world is going. We believe in bucking the system that's built to smash individuals like bugs on a windshield. Some of us believe in the man upstairs. All of us believe in sticking it to the man down here. We believe in the sky, and we don't believe in the sunroof. We believe in freedom. We believe in dust, tumbleweeds, buffalo, mountain ranges, and riding off into the sunset. We believe in saddlebags, and we believe that cowboys had it right. We believe in refusing to knuckle under to anyone. We believe in wearing black because it doesn't show any dirt or weakness. We believe the world is going soft, then we're not going along with it. We believe in motorcycle rallies that last a week. We believe in roadside attractions, gas station hot dogs, and finding out what's over the next hill. We believe in rumbling engines, pistons the size of garbage cans, fuel tanks designed in 1936, freight train-sized headlights, chrome and custom paint. We believe in flames and skulls. We believe life is what you make it, and we make it one hell of a ride. We believe the machine you sit on can tell the world exactly where you stand. We don't care what everyone else believes. Amen.
For the rest of this presentation, because that's one of the things that when we think of Harley-Davidson, and as people and as a person who works at Harley-Davidson, that's something that every piece of marketing material that we do, every single product that we make, we have to think about. Because if we don't bring in that passion and that emotion, we will not get you to that purchase. So when we talk about fulfilling, one of the things with Harley-Davidson is we talk about fulfilling personal dreams. So across gender, across culture, across race. This is something that from decade to decade to decade, it doesn't matter. That is something that has always been a passion for Harley, and it's always been a passion for riders of Harley-Davidsons. So just like everyone, we continue to evolve in kind of understanding why we build motorcycles. So a few things that we talk about, it's giving people a way to experience the open road. It's about providing them a blank canvas to express exactly who they are. It's about generating an emotional response with videos like that, with magazine articles like that, with online experiences like that. It is about being the true first social network of people being able to talk to each other and communicate to each other. So the first thing I'm going to do, and hopefully this will be a little bit interesting for people, is I'm going to talk a little bit about our history as the motor company. So throughout the century, as you guys talk about for today, it's about an iconic brand. Iconic is a perfect word to describe Harley-Davidson and the Harley-Davidson Motor Company. It is something that has been built for building personal connections with millions of people all over the world. Yes, we are a U.S. product in the sense of that's where we started, but this is something in the brand of Harley-Davidson, in a motorcycle of Harley-Davidson is something that is from all over the world. It is something that it's definitely not been an easy road for us throughout the years, but we've always found ways to stay relevant on a product side as well as on a marketing side. So here are our founders. So a few of you guys, hopefully in the room, probably watched the most recent Discovery Channel Harley and the Davidsons. So some of this will be a little bit to that. So the idea came when two of the gentlemen, William S. Harley and Arthur Davidson, decided they wanted to add a motor to a bicycle, because why not? It was the early 20s. From the beginning of that, we basically built on a concept of continuing to reinvent and continuing to innovate, and just kind of continued to that throughout the time. So this group of four spent every spare second that they had working on their first motorcycle, building a factory behind the home. If anyone has ever come over to the museum in Milwaukee or come to the Harley-Davidson Juneau Avenue corporate offices, we have basically the shed that has been reconstructed and is on property for you to see that small of a space that they did this in just those four people. So our first motorcycle was officially completed in 1903. And that's the first time we actually officially painted the Harley-Davidson name and logo on it. And as we'll kind of within our walls say, we'll consider this kind of that first true garage startup, at least in the US. By 1912, Harley-Davidson sold its first bike outside of the United States to a customer in Japan. By 1920, we were the largest motorcycle manufacturer in the world, distributing in 67 countries. Think about that. Think about the capabilities of what even was available from a technology standpoint and a manufacturing standpoint in the 1920s, to know that we were in 67 countries, and that we had the ability to distribute within, 67 countries. So if you think about that from kind of a timeline standpoint, transcontinental flights were not even an option, in the sense of we just continued. So when we talk about the innovation and so forth, that is something, as I said before, it's something that we just continue to do and continue to have to do. So kind of give you who we are today. We have 7 manufacturing operations, facilities. These are all over the world, everywhere from in Milwaukee to India. We have 21 sales and marketing offices, also all over the world. These are everywhere from Singapore to Juneau Avenue in Milwaukee to Oxford in England. We have offices in Asia Pac. We have offices in Australia and so forth. And the thing that's interesting about that is we only have 6,000 employees. So if you think about that from a global organization and the amount of things that we accomplish and the amount of things that we get done with 6,000 people is pretty amazing. And in the most recent years, we have been selling to 95 countries, and we have about 1,400 dealers just over throughout the world, with about 700 of those, so half of those are located in the United States. So kind of the way I've broken this down today is I didn't take you all the way back, right? But I at least kind of am talking from the 1990s to the 2000s, and then as we got into the 2000s, kind of how we're changing. So the big things for us from all of our marketing time frame is talking about segmentation. So back in the early 2000s, segmentation was key for us. And when I talk about segmentation, I mean as direct as we marketed to you based on your age, based on your gender, and based on your ethnic background. It was that simplistic. And part of that came from because we didn't necessarily have the data that we have today to segment to you on any other way, right? So back in the early 2000s, online was just becoming, we had just launched a website, we weren't tracking people, we couldn't track you to the point of knowing what your online behavior was, what sort of events you went to and so forth. We didn't have the back-end systems, let alone the front-end systems to know about that. Basically, and the other thing was, we did this and we tried to get to a place, so as everybody probably in this room and a lot of people think, the only people who buy Harley-Davidsons are old white guys. tell you, they're not the only ones. But the thing I will tell you is we also did a lot of things prior to that to make you think that. So everything that we did, if it was in a commercial, if it was in a print material, in most instances was a picture of an old white guy. So if you are a young female, an African American, a Hispanic, why would that ever resonate with you? So one of the things that we took on was to say, okay, we're gonna target to Hispanics. We're gonna target to women in what we think you're interested in. So we would do things such as women-only events, because for a lot of people, for a woman to ride a motorcycle is terrifying, right? And to think about, I'm gonna take a rider's edge class, for example, and I'm gonna get on a motorcycle and someone's gonna teach me how to ride with a small group of people, but I don't necessarily, some women don't want men in that room. So we would do things like that. We would have events at dealerships that were only for women, in exclusion standpoint, but to try to make them feel comfortable. It was never an instance of, we don't want men in the room. It was an instance of, we need more women riders. We know you're out there. How do we get you into a place and get you comfortable? The other thing that we did, for example, is we worked really hard on the Hispanic market. So we knew for Hispanics, traditionally, motorcycling went way back. So did the thought of Harley-Davidsons, but how do we connect with them better than we are today and not have them feel alienated by the old white male? So an example of this, and I'm gonna show you guys another video, is an example of we worked on a Latino documentary and targeted at Harlistas, which are a known name for Hispanic riders, and it has been for a very long time. So we partnered with a Hispanic director to create one of the most, what we would consider, most powerful documentaries about the lifestyle of a Latino motorcyclist. And basically what happens is we follow their lifestyle and we follow their journey of a true Harlista. And the whole reasoning behind that was to try to, as I'm saying, try to not alienate and bring it back to them and for them to get comfortable and say, oh my gosh, I've always wanted a Harley and this is something I want to do and I can relate to that. Bring up the Harlistas one.
I was almost 16 when I came to this country. When my father left, the first time I would like to say that I was no more than 10 years old. Mayor, tengo mi familia aquí. I do appreciate a lot of things from here.
My son, every time he'd see his dad, he'd get excited.
I've been a passenger on a Harley for like 13 years, and now I get my own, so I'm gonna keep it going. And hopefully we have a lot of good trips like this again.
I always try to be where you're at. Not to make the same mistake my father made with me.
I didn't want him to have to come out and fall and fall and fall. So I wanted to give him the opportunity, and by learning and by taking a craft over. It was a way of showing our lifestyle and how the quote-unquote Mexican Americans wanted to show people our creativity, our way of life.
I needed the second chance. The way I was going, I was gonna hurt people that loved me. There was nothing good that was gonna come out of my life. The future's unforeseeable. I can slip up anytime.
Our parents immigrated from Ecuador to the United States in 1968.
We all come out of the gate, in the airport, one girl, 4 boys, and we almost all dressed the same. We look like the Partridge Family. My dad, he gave up his dream when he came here, in a way, because he had to sell his ride. He had to bring up 5 kids.
He lost part of the dream, but he gained something else. He gave us a good life. Now that my sister is gone, we stick together more than ever. This journey isn't really, it's for Dad, but it's also for the brothers. We like riding. This is our bond that keeps us together.
I would say the perfect journey is one that you got to come back and then you got to sit and think about what it meant to you. My father had a very strong connection to his Native American heritage. When he was younger, they used to call him Two Feathers. One of the reasons why I left the eagles and the bird of prey motifs on the bike is because I always try to find anything that I feel would be a symbol of him. When I went to Sturgis, we had an eagle that was flying about 4 feet off the ground, just soaring right next to us.
I don't think I'm going on this ride because I need a break. I think I'm going on this ride because I need to find my father again.
Passion and that emotion. So yes, we segmented people and we said, you're a woman and we're going to target to you as a woman. You're a Hispanic, we're going to target to you as Hispanic. But in everything we did back then, in everything we do now, it's all about that emotion. Because if I can't get you from a motorcycle standpoint to have that emotion and to have that passion, I won't get you on a bike, and I will definitely not get you on a Harley-Davidson. So one of the things I wanted to share with you guys is kind of to go backwards a little bit, but in the 1990s, we, like everybody, in the early 1990s, pretty much everything we did was from a print standpoint. Okay, so we had 3 magazines that we published. One, which was Hogtails, which we still do a version of that today, that is very specific and only goes to somebody who owns a Harley-Davidson and is part of the Harley Owners Group. The other one we did was Enthusiast, which is actually a magazine that was created right after our inception back in the 1900s. And it is something that has just evolved, and it was something that was available to anyone. From a dealership standpoint, you could order it, that sort of stuff. The other magazine that I don't have up here is one that we did that was specific to Buell. It was a fuel magazine for a product that we no longer create, much more on the racing and sports bike which we decided to get out of quite a long time ago. The other thing is we did a lot with, we have a gigantic parts and accessories catalog, which ironically we still create today, because that is something that when you own a motorcycle or any kind of customization that you want to do on any sort of product, a lot of people want a tangible item that they can flip through and they can look through and they can kind of have that dream state. We today still produce that catalog. It has got hundreds and hundreds of pages and thousands of SKUs from a product standpoint, but it's something that our consumers to this day still want to use and still want that tangible item. We also did a lot of things from a print standpoint from our dealerships. So a lot of you, I'm not sure what you know and what you don't about Harley-Davidson. Harley-Davidson Motor Company does not sell motorcycles. Our dealerships do. They're all independently owned. They all set their own prices within a certain range, and they all work with us from a marketing standpoint. We hand them over marketing materials and help them sell their motorcycles. We have specific campaigns that we work on with them, and we supply them with materials. But they are independently owned, so each one of them competes against each other to try to sell to the next person. So in the late 1990s, and I just had to share this because I thought this was entertaining and I thought everyone in this room would, we launched globally our first website. Ironically, we pushed the anti-web message. So this is our first homepage. So as you can see, it's amazingly blue, which is just amazing to me. And it says, welcome to the Harley-Davidson Worldwide website, go away. So it was interesting because I met my current director is actually the person who launched this site back in the late 1990s. And I talked to him a little bit about that this week, and one of his biggest things that he said is it was most important that we had people riding, right? So we want you to know that you have a place to come, and even today for HD.com, that you have a place to come to obtain information, to purchase product, to feel that experience, to see what other people are engaged are. But the ultimate thing is we want you on your butt on your bike and you enjoying the product that we make for you. We did a little bit back in the day of dabbling in what we'll call large-scale media, so such as commercials and so forth, but Harley has never, and even to this day, spent a large amount of money on large-scale media. We've been unbelievably blessed that we don't necessarily have to, especially back in that time. We didn't necessarily, everyone knows who a Harley-Davidson is, right? And back in the early 90s, we didn't have to even theoretically do a lot of marketing. People had to wait for a motorcycle, kind of like the Green Pay scenario of now. And people had to wait for a motorcycle. You couldn't walk into a dealership and purchase a motorcycle and walk out the door with one. There was waiting lists for them. So we were very blessed, and we had the ability to not have to spend large scales of money on that sort of marketing. So then, like everybody, the recession came. For as much as I'd love to say everybody needs a motorcycle, not everybody needs a motorcycle in a lot of people's minds, right? So like all manufacturers, we as an organization greatly suffered from a financial standpoint to a sales standpoint. So an example, from the peak in 2006, our motorcycle sales were at about 350,000 for the year globally. And then in 2010, we were down to 210. That's a significant financial difference and a significant motorcycle sales standpoint from a global standpoint. We were affected in a lot of ways from a standpoint of downsizing and we'll call right sizing within our organization. Dealerships closed all over the world because they couldn't support it. So it came out that clear and drastic changes needed to be made throughout the motor company, if that was on a production standpoint or if that was on a marketing standpoint. We looked at massive new strategies of how we can focus on our consumers and how we can still bring in that passion and that emotion, but how do we begin to target to consumers on what you want? So kind of that on your own terms scenario of we knew who you are, and now we're kind of flowing into that segmentation standpoint of we know a lot more about you, and we know a lot more about what your actions are and what you choose to do and what you're interested in. Like I said before, HD had to show people why they needed a motorcycle after you possibly lost your job, or you had to make a decision between a motorcycle and something else, and why you needed a Harley-Davidson over any kind of other motorcycle. Because, as everyone's probably aware, a lot of people over the past few years have begun to kind of try to copy that look, that feel of what a Harley-Davidson is, and can do things in some instances for cheaper than we can, but to realize and to show people and to market to people and to show the fact that, but it's not a Harley-Davidson, and you'll never get that without actually purchasing and getting on a Harley-Davidson. So, as I said before, the recession affected a lot of companies, not just us, right? From a financial crisis for a lot of people. So one of the things is we began to take on a philosophy of just screw it and ride. Just pay, because people needed to get away, as they do today, as they did back then, to get away from the daily grind and to get away from the stress of everything that's going on in their lives. So we started a campaign, literally, that says, so screw it, let's ride. This is an example of a bandana that we made and was handed out all over specifically in the United States, and kind of that philosophy of don't do fear. We know that you're stressed out, we know you've got a lot going on, and it's not necessarily a message of go out and ride a Harley-Davidson, it's go out and ride and get away from everything and kind of do that. So then 2009 hit. The New York Times, specifically, ran an article in their economy section basically stating that Harley-Davidson riders aren't getting any younger, which isn't necessarily untrue, and that our strategies from a financial standpoint and a marketing standpoint were not sustainable. They weren't wrong. We were suffering like everybody was suffering. But remember, Harley has lived through lots of problems, from the Great Depression to major blowouts in the 1970s. That's when sales began to grow with cheaper bikes, people beginning to try to make that decision of do I buy the cheaper bike or do I buy the Harley? We have a lot of people who think about, I want a motorcycle, today I'm gonna buy the cheaper bike, but my ultimate goal is to buy that Harley and to be on that Harley. And then if you'll think about, I'm not sure how many of you know, but back in 1985, there was a possibility of basically us going bankrupt. And the whole thing behind this article, a lot of it wasn't untrue. But the whole philosophy behind it was we were done and we were over. Well, our current chief marketing officer at that time, his name was Mark Hans, he decided that the best way for us to deal with this with a lot of other people in conversation to still go back to that screw it, let's ride, was we took out a 2-page spread in a Sunday New York Times and basically gave him the middle finger. And this is probably one of, I talk about, I've been at Harley for 11 years, and I talk about a lot of things that we've done, and a lot of examples that I'll show you are not necessarily from today, but our strategies are still very much the same. We are a passionate group of people, we're an emotional group of people, and we have to play off of that emotion of who our consumers are. So I'll give you guys kind of a second to read it, but even just in the gigantic blue area, you can file your obituary where the sun don't shine. And that is something that in everything that we do, in this instance, we were reactive because we had to be. But we also could have just not addressed it and said, okay, we're gonna let the New York Times say that we're falling and that we're failing and that we're, the end of Harley-Davidson. No, we're not. We're gonna do everything that we can to continue to market to our consumers and to make them realize they need to ride a motorcycle and it needs to be a Harley-Davidson. So marketing today. So as everybody in this room is aware, everything and most of everything has gone digital, right? So we have to think about, one of the things that we do is we market based on data. Analytics and data are huge for us, just as much as they are for anyone else. So everything from looking at what are your interests, what do you do, so what are your outside interests and so forth, what do you like to do, people who ride motorcycles, if they're men, if they're women, if they're Hispanic, if they're African American, what do you like to do other than ride a Harley-Davidson or ride a motorcycle in general? And also kind of the philosophy of testing and trying again. It's okay to fail. That's the one great thing about, and not necessarily every single marketing department and every single experience within a organization, is it okay to fail. So testing things, trying things, changing things up to ensure that, hey, this online advertisement didn't work, let's try a different message. Doing a lot of testing from a digital standpoint and trying different billboards on different segments to see what are people looking at, what are they engaging with, what's that engagement time for people. So here's just a few examples of things that we've done from a segmentation standpoint. So HD.com today, we don't do as much segmentation as I would like to. We are getting there slowly but surely. Some online advertising. Email right now in print that comes from a dealership is probably our best examples that I could give you from a segmentation standpoint. So like I said before, we're a lot of behavior-based marketing. So we know what you're doing, we know what you like to do, and you'll see a few more examples as we kind of get into this presentation of partnerships and sponsorships and places that you go that we want to be and ensure that we're engaging with you. But a couple examples. So we do a lot of segmentation when it comes to emails. For example, we know what the most recent motorcycle that you purchased is. Okay, so let's say you ride a touring model versus jump on a sporty, which is a lower end bike. We offer you particular motor clothes and so forth that are applicable to that bike that you have purchased that resonate with you and possibly what you would need. We can look at things such as if you're a man or a woman, we market to based on, for example, clothing that are for women versus for men. The other thing we can do is we know a lot of cycles of purchase in the sense of what bike you started with, what'll probably, based on a whole bunch of different data, what'll probably be your next purchase. So then we can start hitting you, and we also know when you purchased and how often you're in your dealership. There's so much data that's out there, and if we don't listen to that data today, we will lose you as a consumer because the person sitting next to us and the competitor sitting next to us knows it just as much as we do. There's one more video I'm going to show you guys. So the next video that we do is called Stereotypical Harley. Once again, this is not a video that is brand spanking new, but I think it's something that kind of will show to all of you kind of where we're coming and that everyone and anyone can ride a Harley. So in that video, in that campaign, we were specifically trying to remind people that it doesn't matter if you're the soccer mom, if you're a doctor, it doesn't matter. You can still ride and you're gonna have interest in this product and you can have that kind of life outside of your life. So as everybody probably assumes, we dabble a lot in social media. It's the world we live in. We do We've just kind of, from a time standpoint, quickly kind of run through this. So we're everywhere kind of everyone else is, right? The big guys. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, now we're on Snapchat. So really started out as Facebook. The big thing for us is our Facebook, we do from it, yes, it's US based, but it's really used from a global standpoint. Our global countries and our global offices definitely have Facebook, but they don't have the engagement that we do from a corporate standpoint. Our biggest followers from a standpoint, if you look at participation and just the sheer number of followers that we have, is Instagram, which completely makes sense for a brand like us. We're a visual brand. Everyone wants to share their experience. The other thing is if you think about who's your demographic, and which is really good for us because we know from a Facebook standpoint that generation is getting older versus younger versus your Twitter and your Snapchat and your Instagram. So it makes sense from where people are coming in from a social standpoint. The other thing is we've just kind of started to dabble in Snapchat, kind of testing the waters, right? So we know from a demographic standpoint, it's definitely a younger generation, and kind of where that fits in. And that's the one thing too, is we do, like I said before, we do a lot of testing. Let's see what works. It doesn't hurt to try from a Snapchat standpoint. Let's see if we can get engaged. The other thing that we have done is just started to kind of do the grassroots kind of Facebook Live scenario. An example actually is last Friday night. There were indoor flat track races in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and we partnered with them and we did a Facebook Live broadcast from the experience. A great example of that and a great thing for us in that standpoint, there was only 3,000 people there, very local, very small. It's Milwaukee, right? But the cool thing is we know that at least over 500,000 people globally watched it. Now that's huge, right? And that's the power of social media and just that sheer scale and impact that we as an organization can have sitting in Juneau Avenue or sitting in Milwaukee at a flat track race and how much we can reach and how we can reach from people. So the next thing I'm going to talk to you guys is about partnerships. So a little bit from a, talked about that from a Green Bay Packers standpoint. Partnerships are ridiculously important to us just as much as they are to any other brand. So the one thing is that we need to go where our consumers are going, and we need to understand what their likes are and what they don't like. And to remember that, yes, talk about UFC as an example. Their demographic is obviously very male. That's okay, because we will find partners and we will engage with people that aren't necessarily on the male side and thinking about where that all lands. So this UFC partnership, as an example, has been around for quite a long time. And the big thing that we try to do when we have partnerships and we have sponsorships is it's a large integrated experience. We have online experiences, we integrate with email, we have online advertising, we have on-site event activation. This is not just about having some tiny little contest that doesn't branch out beyond that. So UFC is a great example in the sense of we would participate at fights. We would have UFC fighters at our Harley-Davidson events or at things like Daytona or Sturgis, and we would engage with people to bring the brand together with UFC and the people who like it to ensure the things that get like autographs and so forth. We did things such as the TV show, the winner for the past few years has received a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. So kind of engaging with them and always kind of in that kind of face of anyone who's engaged with UFC. X Games is a great example. We've only been there for the past couple years in the sense of it's been a great partnership, but an example of working with them is doing things that we introduced ice flat track racing last winter at the X Games. First time ever. And that's huge for motorcycling in the first place and huge for the fact that a brand, Harley-Davidson, was able to partner and specifically bring that product and that experience to the X Games. The last one up here is specific to an anniversary, our last anniversary. We partnered, obviously both Wisconsin, both Milwaukee brands, so why wouldn't we? Partnership with Miller, and we've had a long-standing partnership with Miller. But one of the things that we did do is they created merchandise for us. They had a series of cans that were brewed at a specific time that had the anniversary on and so forth. We did web experiences, we did commercials and so forth. But the one thing we did do, which is another video that I have to show you guys, is we partnered with Miller to pick one lucky fan to win beer for a year. Nice. Thought I might relate.
Hey, y'all. It's your favorite Miller High Life delivery man coming to you from the heartland and beautiful Madison, Wisconsin. We're on our way to deliver a huge Harley fan, Warren, the surprise of a lifetime. Warren submitted an epic ride story to Harley-Davidson's website about riding with his friends every year over Memorial Day weekend as a way to honor his fellow Marines. We're about to surprise Warren at his house with beer for a year. And Harley-Davidson is about to surprise him with a couple of cases that Bill Davidson, the great-grandson of Harley-Davidson's co-founder William Davidson, brewed with High Life Brewmasters to celebrate Harley and High Life's 110th anniversaries. Can you believe it? Oh, yeah. Joining me is Karen Davidson of the legendary Davidson family. Hey, Karen.
Hey there, Wendell.
How are you? I'm good. How are you?
I'm real good.
Are you ready to do this?
Hey, do you mind if we pick up some friends before we go?
Hey, let's do it.
All right.
Yeah. Where's Warren at? What's going on, Bubba? Warren, what's up, brother? How you doing? Good, man. How are you?
Good, good.
Hey, we heard
Oh
about
my
your
God.
epic ride, and we had to bring you a year's supply of beer.
All right.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. Think you got some buddies that can
yeah.
enjoy that?
I just
And
put
all
on
these
this
people, look at this crew. Look at this crew right here. All these people from the bottom of their heart wanted to ride here today just to thank you for that.
Let's have a cheers to Warren.
I had no idea. I really thought like one dude was going to come on a motorcycle with a Warren case of beer on the back of it. That's what I was expecting. And these guys all showed up, and I was just like, my heart was pounding. I couldn't believe it. A beer truck is coming to my house. That's awesome. It's crazy. I've never had anybody do something that spectacular for me. It was awesome. I couldn't believe it. Thanks to Harley-Davidson and Miller High Life for doing this. Thanks for everything, guys. I appreciate it.
So that once again, and everything keeps coming back to the emotion and the passion, and think about the guy's statement of, he thought that we were gonna ride up with a six-pack of beer on the back of a bike. And we pulled up with a large group of riders, a gigantic semi, and engaged with him as a consumer. These are things that, and then you use social network and people talking about and so forth. These are the ways that we have to engage with our consumers to ensure, why would you pick a Harley over something else? So kind of into the partnership standpoint, product placement, we also work really hard on this. I'm sure most of you guys have seen for the past few years, we've partnered with Marvel, numerous movies. From some of it as simple as contests and so forth, some of it as simple as product placement, just getting that awareness out there. We have done other things from a standpoint, partner for music, so talking about Kid Rock as an example. So he was at our last anniversary, but we do, once again, partner from a standpoint of there's merchandise to be purchased, there's online experiences and so forth, and everything is a fluid experience. It's not just a single, and everything is tied together. So the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is kind of the next generation for us. And I promise this is my last slide, and then you guys can go eat. The thing is, you guys will kind of see the pictures I have on here and kind of how we as an organization have evolved, right? So starting out with a motorcycle that was realistically kind of a bicycle with an engine, right? All the way to our latest Livewire, which is a prototype at this point in time, but it's an electric motorcycle. And that is something that today kind of exists. There's a few competitors out there, but one of the things that we worked really, really hard on was we put a prototype into market, we went all over the world, and we let anyone who had a motorcycle license ride it. And we had engineers sitting down with you and saying, okay, you're finished with your ride, what did you like, what don't you like, what should we change? So that is something, as we look from a product standpoint, that's exactly it. So you look at the other side of it, we've got print, right, which still exists today, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, all the way to things like augmented reality. So for us, it is just as much, we have to, number one, we're always known to be customer-led. So that's one of the things we figured out over the years, we have to listen to you. If that's a product standpoint or if that's a marketing standpoint. That's from everything from where do you go, we want to be there too. What are you interested in? We need to be interested in it too. What do you like? What don't you like? From how we're engaging with you. So the biggest thing is we have to think about from a marketing organization, transformation for us doesn't stop at product. It also comes, we have to continue to be innovative. We have to think about what's our next step. How do people want to be marketing? Trying to be ahead of the fact of augmented reality is coming. What's next? Where should we be from a marketing standpoint? And remembering kind of our roots of the standpoint in that very first video that I showed you, it's about passion, it's about the emotion, and not forgetting any of that as we're marketing. It's not as simple as just creating an ad and placing it out there. Not in the competition that we live in, and not in the fact, as I stated before, not everybody needs a motorcycle. So we've got two things in the sense of we're going against each other. We want you to buy a motorcycle, but we want you to buy a Harley-Davidson when you make that decision. So kind of as I said before, and the last thing I'll finish you guys with is, as I talked about segmentation before, it's also about that passion, it's about that emotion. And like I said, but we have to be relevant and we have to be as much customized as possible. We need to tailor to you, in your space, in what you want, in what you need, and what's interesting to you. So one of the kind of things we'll call it right now that's out there is called precision marketing. So it's talking about deploying the right message at the right time to the right person. And that's the biggest thing for us, and that's probably one of the biggest challenges as we're getting all of this data and going through all of it, is making sure that we're doing that. And I have one last video, if I can hold you guys for 1 second, that's specific to the Livewire. I just think is cool.
Freedom and ingenuity has always shaped our nation and our place in it. It's what inspired our founders. It compelled us to answer the call to serve. It united people around shared passions and inspired generations to express themselves. We share the same promise of freedom and the same desire to expand it. That's the inspiration behind Project Livewire. When it comes time to shape a next generation, we rely on American ingenuity and the very same people who got us here. You. Harley-Davidson's first electric motorcycle, only on the Project Livewire Experience Tour. Join us for the ride.
So that's all I have. I think we're right up to time. Perfect timing. Right? Do we have time for questions? A couple, if anyone has any, or do we need to? Okay. So if anyone has any questions, I think there's a mic over there. Nobody.
Someone going to ask a question? I guess they're hungry, but you can speak to them afterwards as well,
Yeah.
okay? So they'll be up here for...
She's back at 1 o'clock in this room. So again, if you have questions about Harley and Harley...
You have one question,
It's just a quick question. My name is Greg Dragan. I'm from Northern Michigan University. What bike do you ride and why?
Ooh, tough crowd.
A bike, of course.
Yes. So we have a Dyna Wide Glide in my house. It is actually a pretty old bike. It's the old engine. Why? So I grew up around motorcycles. My dad, my parents are from Belfast, Northern Ireland, and my dad grew up riding bikes. And so from the age of about 2, I was on the back of them. So for me, it's kind of that family and kind of connection. Now, I have 2 small kids. I'm married. I work full time. List could go on and on. It's truly that freedom. When you feel and you get on that bike, everything goes away. Right? So it's that passion and that feeling of I'm in my own world. I don't want to be a passenger, which I was for quite a few years, even after I started at Harley. But it's just that feeling. It's a feeling of freedom, and it's so cliche, right? The feeling of freedom, but it really is. It's a feeling that I don't get in any other place. Other people might that are in, certain kinds of sports and so forth. But for me, it's exactly what it is. It's you're away from everything. It's your time. I'm not going to say the first few times it's terrifying. And even when you first learn to drive, right? It's not about you, it's about everybody else who's around you, and thinking about the fact, because you have to be so unbelievably aware when you're on 2 wheels, let alone on 4. So yeah, I guess for me it's totally cliche, but it really is that feeling of freedom and how cool it feels.
Cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.